Years earlier, Adaobi was the type of woman everyone admired and envied. She was young, brilliant, beautiful, and educated to the highest level. A PhD holder at just 29, her parents and friends expected her to marry into wealth or into a family of influence. She had options: wealthy suitors, professors, politicians' sons. But Adaobi shocked everyone when she married Chuka, her father's driver. Chuka had only an OND from a polytechnic, and though intelligent in his own way, society would have called him below her class. But Adaobi was never one to bend to society's expectations. She loved him with a fierceness that ignored every whisper, every warning. Class is nothing, she told her parents. Wealth can be built, but true love cannot be bought. Against all odds, they married. At first, the ridicule was heavy. People whispered at church, family members avoided them, and Adaobi's colleagues mocked her choice. But Adaobi had money and influence. She used her wealth to establish businesses, buy land, and gradually, she elevated Chuka's status. She registered companies in his name, gave him connections, and soon the whispers turned into admiration. Chuka's brothers, uncles, and cousins benefited too. Adaobi sponsored their children through school, opened shops and provision stores for their wives, and ensured no one lacked. When people asked her why she was so generous, she would smile and say, "Family must rise together." 5 years into their marriage, they faced a storm. After several miscarriages and disappointments, Adaobi agreed to try IVF. By God's mercy, she conceived twin girls. The day the twins were born, Adaobi felt her world was complete. But her joy came at a price. Complications from childbirth left her without a womb. The doctors told her she would never bear another child. She and Chuka decided to accept their fate. "Our girls are enough," Adaobi whispered one night, holding her babies close. She meant it. But unknown to her, Chuka's heart longed for a son. A year later, during one of his visits to the village, Chuka's brother introduced him to a young woman. She was vibrant, fertile, and available. Against his vows, Chuka began a secret affair. The girl soon became pregnant and bore him a son. Overjoyed, Chuka hid the truth from Adaobi, but he provided for the mistress lavishly, renting a house, setting up a business, and pouring resources into her and the child. Meanwhile, to the world, Adaobi and Chuka were the perfect couple. Wealthy, respected, envied. People said they were the model of success. Adaobi never suspected a thing. She trusted her husband completely, and in her eyes, their love was unbreakable. Years rolled by, and the family grew richer. Their daughters excelled in school, and Adaobi continued to be the pillar behind the empire. But fate is never kind forever. Chuka fell ill one rainy season. At first, they thought it was malaria, then typhoid. But the sickness lingered, dragging him down daily. Adaobi spent millions on hospital bills, flying him to specialists in Abuja and Lagos, even considering taking him abroad. But Chuka's health worsened, and within months, death knocked on their door. On the day of his burial, Adaobi wore her widow's black lace and tried to stay strong. People comforted her. Some whispered about how much she had loved him. But then, in the middle of the ceremony, her world shattered. From the crowd stepped a woman Adaobi had never seen before, holding a boy of about 15. She claimed the boy was Chuka's son. At first, Adaobi laughed bitterly, thinking it was a cruel prank. But the murmurs, the knowing glances from some relatives, and the boy's striking resemblance to her late husband told her it was true. Her knees buckled. She felt her chest tighten as betrayal pierced her deeper than grief. 32 years of love, of sacrifice, of standing against society, and yet he had fathered a son behind her back. Still, she tried to hold herself together. After all, she had wealth. She had her girls. She believed she could protect them and continue their lives. But she was wrong. A week after the burial, Chuka's brothers, uncles, and elders summoned her for a family meeting. In the sitting room of her own mansion, they told her to vacate the house and hand over every property to the boy, declaring that according to tradition, only a son could inherit. Her heart raced as she pleaded. I built this empire. I sacrificed for this family. You cannot erase me and my daughters." But her stepson, now 16 and full of arrogance, sneered, "My father gave me everything. You only helped him. Don't pretend you're the reason he succeeded." The boy's mother spat venom too. "You think you're untouchable because of your education and money? Now the truth has come out. Pack your things and leave. The properties belong to my son." Adaobi stared at the faces around her, faces of men whose children she had trained, women whose shops she had opened, uncles she had fed and clothed. Now they all looked at her with cold betrayal. Her lawyers offered no comfort. Without a will, all properties in Chuka's name belonged to his heirs, and under customary law, the son and the brothers could claim everything. Even if the boy was not in the picture, Chuka's brothers still had rights. Adaobi felt her life collapsing. The house she built was no longer hers. The businesses she managed were slipping away. Her daughter's future was being stolen before her eyes. And in that moment of despair, a seed of vengeance was planted. Adaobi barely slept after that family meeting. She tossed on her bed, staring at the ceiling fan that turned slowly above her. Every word replayed in her head. The arrogance in her stepson's voice, the disdain in his mother's eyes, and the betrayal in her brothers-in-law's tone. She remembered each sacrifice she had made. The nights she had stayed awake planning business strategies, the mornings she had signed checks for her husband's family, the pride she had swallowed whenever people mocked her marriage. All of it had been for nothing. Her twin daughters, Amara and Ifeoma, were still in shock. They had overheard the arguments and had seen their uncles move into the mansion as if they owned it. Amara, the outspoken one, cried in anger, "Mama, this is wickedness. How can they throw us out of our own house? How can they forget everything you've done?" But Ifeoma, the quieter twin, held her mother's hand and whispered, "We will be fine, Mama. God will fight for us." Adaobi nodded silently, but inside she felt the weight of hopelessness. God had been silent when her womb was taken. God had been silent when her husband betrayed her. And now, in her widowhood, God was silent as her enemies trampled on her. The days that followed were unbearable. Her brothers-in-law walked freely around the compound, barking orders at the staff as if they were kings. The stepson mocked her openly, flaunting car keys and boasting about how he was now the man of the house. His mother sneered each time they crossed paths, acting as if Adaobi was just a visitor. The final straw came one morning when Adaobi was having tea in the dining room. Her husband's eldest brother barged in, flung some papers on the table, and said, "Sign these. Hand over the documents. We have been patient enough." Adaobi's hands trembled. "But those businesses, those lands, I bought them. With my money, with my sweat. How can you—" "Quiet, woman," he barked. "Everything your husband had is family property. You should thank the gods that we are not throwing you out to the street immediately." Her stepson added with a mocking smile, "Or maybe we should. After all, you killed my father, poisoned him slowly with your so-called love." Adaobi froze. The words stung her like a slap. She had loved that man more than her own life. She had sacrificed her reputation for him. And now she was being accused of killing him? Tears blurred her eyes, but something hardened inside her that day. For the first time in her life, Adaobi tasted the bitterness of hatred. That evening, she called her lawyer privately. "What if I resist? What if I take them to court?" Her lawyer sighed deeply. "Madam, without a will in your name, there is nothing to stand on. Every property is registered under your husband. Even if you succeed in dragging it out, customary law will favor the son and his male relatives. You may waste years in court and still lose everything." When the call ended, Adaobi sat in silence. She felt trapped in a nightmare. Her daughters deserved better. They were innocent, brilliant, and full of potential. Yet their future was being stolen before her eyes. That night, while the compound buzzed with laughter from her husband's relatives, who now treated the mansion like theirs, Adaobi sat by the window. The moonlight bathed her face as she whispered to herself, "If they want everything, they will get it, but not the way they expect." The next weeks passed like a play. Adobe moved calmly, without protest. She stopped arguing with them, stopped pleading. She handed over some documents, allowed them to take over the master bedroom, and even smiled faintly whenever they mocked her. They thought she was broken. But beneath her calm face, Adaobi was planning. She called her caterer, a trusted woman who had cooked for the family for years, and gave her an unusual order. She listed out expensive dishes: jollof rice, pepper soup, nkwobi, grilled fish, goat meat, chicken, and a variety of wines and juices. It was to be a grand feast. Then she made another call to her twin sister in Canada. "My dear, I want to send Amara and Ifeoma to you for a little while. They need a change of environment. This place is suffocating them." Her sister agreed happily, unaware of Araobi's true reasons. Within a week, the girls were gone, believing their mother just wanted them safe. The mansion grew quieter without them, and Araobi's plan grew bolder. One night, while sitting alone in her late husband's study, she pulled out the files she had been hiding. She packaged all the real documents, the land titles, business registrations, and bank account details, and sent them discreetly to her lawyers with a note, "Keep safe. My daughters will need these." Then she sat back in the leather chair, staring at the portrait of her husband on the wall. His smile seemed to mock her. "You wanted a son," she whispered bitterly. "Now let your son and your brothers eat the fruit of betrayal." Her decision was sealed. The dinner of death was set in motion. The evening of the dinner was calm, as though nature itself had agreed to Araobi's plan. The sun dipped into the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple. From the mansion's kitchen, the aroma of spices, grilled meat, and rich soups filled the air. It was a feast fit for royalty. Adaobi dressed carefully that night. She wore a simple but elegant black lace gown, her head wrapped in a golden scarf. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried a strange fire. She moved through the house with quiet grace, checking that every dish was in place, every drink chilled. No one could suspect a thing. When her brothers-in-law arrived, they were in high spirits. They joked loudly, their laughter echoing through the corridors. The arrogant stepson strolled in with his mother, wearing a designer shirt and a smirk that Adobe had come to despise. "Ah, Madam Widow," he said mockingly, "I didn't know you could still host parties after killing my father." His mother laughed bitterly, adding, "Maybe she wants to bribe us with food so we won't chase her out." Adobe smiled faintly, ignoring the insults. "Tonight is not for quarrels," she said softly. "I have made peace with everything. Let us eat together as one family before I leave this house." Her calmness disarmed them. For the first time since the burial, they thought they had won. The food was served on long tables, steaming and colorful. Plates of jollof and fried rice, bowls of pepper soup, trays of goat meat, grilled fish, and suya filled the spread. Bottles of wine and soft drinks glistened in the light. They sat, laughed, and ate greedily. The stepson boasted about how he would renovate the house once Adaobi was gone. One of the uncles toasted to the continuation of the family's name through the only son. Even the women gossiped about how Adaobi would soon fade into nothing. But Adaobi barely touched her food. She watched them eat, her face serene, her heart beating with an unshakable rhythm. Each bite they took was laced with the poison she had so carefully prepared. Halfway through the meal, she rose and brought out a brown envelope. She handed it to the eldest brother with a small bow. "These," she said, "are the property documents you demanded. I want you all to have them. I do not wish for further fights. After tonight, I will leave quietly." They snatched the envelope greedily. None of them noticed that the documents were fake, neatly arranged copies. They were too busy eating, drinking, and congratulating themselves. Adobe lifted her glass of red wine. "To peace," she said. "To peace," they chorused, clinking glasses before swallowing the deadly liquid. For a while, the room remained cheerful. The sound of cutlery against plates, the chatter, the bursts of laughter, it all filled the air like any normal family dinner. Then it began. The first cough came from the stepson. He reached for his throat, frowning. His mother laughed at him. "Slow down, eh? You're eating like someone who hasn't seen food before." But then one of the uncles dropped his fork, clutching his stomach. Another groaned, his body shaking. Confusion spread across the table as more of them began to gasp, choke, and writhe in pain. The stepson stood, knocking over his chair. What is happening?" His voice cracked as blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. The women screamed. Plates crashed to the floor. The mansion that once held laughter now shook with cries of agony. Adaobi sat still, her wine glass in hand, her eyes cold and unblinking. "It is done," she whispered. Soon, their voices grew weaker. One by one, they fell to the floor, lifeless. Adaobi felt the poison creeping through her own veins, too. She had eaten enough to join them. Her vision blurred, her body weakened, but she welcomed it. She lay back in her chair, her breathing shallow. "Chuka," she murmured, addressing her late husband's portrait on the wall, "this is the fruit of your betrayal. May the world remember me not as a fool, but as a woman who loved too much." Her eyes fluttered shut, and silence claimed the mansion. By morning, the news spread like wildfire. The once envied mansion of wealth had turned into a house of death. People gathered outside, whispering, pointing, weeping, and shaking their heads. No one could believe it. The generous widow, the powerful family, all gone in one night. The mansion was swarming with people by sunrise. Neighbors, villagers, reporters, and even strangers stood outside the gates, whispering in disbelief. Police officers carried bodies out on stretchers, covering them with white sheets. The once mighty family compound, built with love and sacrifice, had become a graveyard overnight. Some said it was a curse, others called it justice. The truth spread in fragments that the widow, after being betrayed, had poisoned the family dinner and died alongside them. News traveled across oceans. In Canada, Amara and Ifeoma received the call that shattered their hearts. Their mother was gone, their uncles, their stepbrother, everyone dead. Amara dropped the phone and screamed until her voice cracked. Ifeoma wept silently, holding her sister, her tears soaking through her blouse. The world suddenly felt cold and cruel. They remembered their mother's last hug before putting them on the plane, her words echoing now like prophecy. "Be safe, my daughters. No matter what happens, remember that I love you." For days, they were inconsolable. Their aunt tried to comfort them, but grief sat heavy in their hearts. How could their mother, the strongest woman they knew, be gone like this? But amidst the grief came a twist. Their mother's lawyer contacted them. He flew to Canada with a thick brown envelope, the same package Adaobi had prepared before her death. Inside were the true property documents, land titles, business registrations, and bank account details, all legally secured. Adaobi had not died a fool. She had planned everything. The fake documents she had handed over during the dinner were worthless. The real empire was preserved for her daughters. When Amara opened the envelope, she broke down in fresh tears. "Mama, you knew. You protected us till the very end." Ifeoma held her sister's hand. "She gave her life so we could live." Months later, the twins returned to Nigeria with their aunt and their lawyers. Court cases erupted immediately, with distant relatives trying to seize what remained. But Adobe's foresight and legal precision outsmarted them all. The courts recognized the documents, and the twins were declared the rightful heirs of their parents' wealth. The same community that once envied Adaobi now mourned her. People whispered that her story was both a tragedy and a warning of love, betrayal, and the price of silence. Amara and Ifeoma inherited not only wealth, but also their mother's legacy. They expanded the businesses, kept their father's name alive, but never forgot the woman who had built it all with her heart. Every year, on the anniversary of her death, they visited her grave. They laid flowers and prayed. vowing never to repeat the mistakes of silence and blind love. Amara once stood by the gravestone, her voice breaking as she spoke. "You loved too much, Mama, but your love gave us strength. Rest well. We will carry your name with pride." Ifioma added softly, "They thought they won, but in the end, you defeated them." And with that, the twins walked away, hand in hand, ready to face the world their mother had sacrificed everything to secure for them. The story of Adaobi, the woman who married for love, built an empire, lost it to betrayal, and reclaimed it through sacrifice, lived on in the whispers of the community. Some called her a fool, some called her a hero, but to her daughters, she was simply mother. This is the end of this story. The moral lesson of the story is love should never blind us to the importance of wisdom. Adaobi gave everything, her wealth, her strength, her trust, to build her marriage, yet she forgot to protect herself legally. In life, sacrifices must be balanced with foresight. Betrayal can come from those closest to us, so always secure your future and your children's future. Above all, pain can break a person, but it can also plant seeds of strength for the next generation. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you found this story touching, inspiring, or even shocking, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. Share this video with your friends and family. It might inspire someone today. Until next time, stay strong, stay wise, and remember, every story carries a lesson.